Hello, everybody, and welcome back, finally, to another edition of the Tougies Take podcast. It has been a couple of weeks since you have heard from us, the guys, the fellas, your hockey friends, but we are finally back against quite a few odds, I would say, in my case. But I am joined alongside Mr. Endurance Endo.
Indeed.
How are you?
I'm a blue collar man. I have a disdain for the current government in power, and it's great. I love it. Everything's so great. It's been a month, and I hate everything. It's great.
That's how quickly things can change. We miss a couple of weeks. Endo has a job that he hates, and it's a good time.
No, I really like my job. I honestly love my job. I'm not even joking. My camera just switched completely for some reason, but yeah, I love my job. Flat out. I will say that.
It's just everything else surrounding it.
Yeah. Like the first conversation, it was like, oh, you don't know how many fuck Trudeau bumper stickers I've seen on trucks in like the parking lot area.
Yeah, fair.
There's a healthy amount.
I mean, as someone who recently took a trip to a southern United state, yeah, a lot of people don't like old Joe Byron, do they?
Yeah.
And I saw truck nuts. Those are still a thing.
Hell yeah.
More on that in a minute. Sin, how are you?
I'm just wanting to talk about hockey, baby. The playoffs have been awesome.
Well, that's a good thing because, damn it, that's what we're here to do today, aside from me testing the waters of how over this battle of bronchitis am I actually, which continues to be an ongoing battle and is, of course, the primary reason why we haven't been here for the last little bit. And it's a shame because we missed out on getting to talk about a lot of what we normally do at the end of a season. You know, we missed out on our chance to talk about, a lot of the teams that were eliminated and kind of what the outlook is for them moving forward. Although I would say, thankfully, for a lot of teams, it's pretty straightforward in terms of like, oh, okay, like, Detroit, they'll be back. They'll be fine. Chicago, they'll probably get the first overall pick, even though the Sharks have the top odds. Sin's pretty well prepared for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of coaching changes. Like, what year is it? Lindy Ruff is the head coach in Buffalo again, which is incredibly bizarre. Speaking of the Sharks, David Quinn was let go as head coach. The Tank Commander's gone. That was a bit weird. And even today, like, Dave Haxtell's out in Seattle, which I think a lot of people expected when they first named him as a head coach, but it's kind of an awkward time now. But, we missed out on a lot of stuff like that. We missed out on a lot of the end of season awards, and now we're at the point where they're naming nominees for certain awards, like the Vezina finalists came out today.
Mm-hmm.
Bobrovsky, Demko, and Hellebuck are the final three there, which I don't really know how much of a conversation there is to be had there. I think it's going to be Connor Hellebuck more than likely from a statistical standpoint. I don't know if anybody disagrees.
No, not really. They're all three very deserving in their own way. But yeah, Hellebuck kind of carried that team. Now he's fallen off tremendously in the playoffs. But I mean,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with, trophies. They're all regular season awards, right, except for the ones that aren't.
Yeah, pretty much. So, it's one of those things where it's just kind of weird, right? Because it's like, okay, we've missed out on so much of what we normally get to talk about at the end of the season that we do just kind of want to say, screw it, it's gone, whatever. Let's jump into talking about the playoffs. But there is one topic that I feel like we cannot skip over in that regard, right? I mean, like I said, the moment's gone in terms of being like, oh, Montreal had a bad season, huh? But the one topic that we cannot skip over that has happened over the last couple of weeks is the departure of the Arizona Coyotes that became official, which is still very weird to think about. When it first came up, it was around the time I was getting back from, or was going to be getting back from this road trip that I took to Tennessee with my wife, where, again, at the end of it, I end up with fucking bronchitis, and that's been fun. But we were going to have Deke on the show, good old twitch.tv/Deke Slayer, of course. But even he and I joked about it at the time. It's like, well, we tried to get you onto the show to talk positively about the Coyotes, but that just wasn't in the cards, was it? Ever, apparently. And now I'm not against still getting him back and talking about it, but at the same time, it's almost like, let's just leave the poor guy alone and just, let him mourn for a little bit, because after all of that, which that I think now has to be deemed as nonsense, of the Tempe deal and ownership and really just their entire existence, moving from Winnipeg to Phoenix in the Suns arena, which wasn't fit for hockey, not getting their arena deal in Scottsdale and going to Glendale instead, which created its own issues for 15 years, not getting the arena deal in Tempe in favor of that city keeping a landfill, not getting other deals lined up, and it all leads to the team moving to Utah. They will be playing in the home of the Utah Jazz, at least short term. I mean, the word is they're going to be looking to make that arena more fit for hockey, but it's just really weird to think like the Arizona Coyotes at the moment do not exist as an active team. They do technically exist. As people will know at this point, the owner has 5 years to get his shit together and can reactivate the franchise via an expansion draft. But I think for me, like, what kind of sealed the deal for them, we had talked about on the show for a while, like, they're not going to relocate the Coyotes. And technically, they're not. Like, there was money exchanged between ownership groups and the NHL. It's not a full-on relocation. The NHL had money to earn through this deal, and if the Coyotes are reactivated in the next 5 years, there's technically essentially an expansion fee for that. I think that's what kind of doomed the Coyotes, is the NHL had the ability to make money, instead of just outright relocating a franchise.
What also doomed the Coyotes was their horrible owner, who still owns the like you said, he owns the rights to the branding. Yeah. And that's the worst thing, is that I don't think he's going to get his shit together. I just hope he passes it off to someone else, like, because he's clearly unfit, like, to run an NHL franchise. It's been made very, very clear time and time again. And the whole drama between him putting his son up there to be the social media manager,
Man.
Like, it's honestly an embarrassment, and everything wrong with NHL owners, but also kind of the NHL in the nutshell. It's a boys club, and there's nepotism all around.
Yeah.
Like, I think the greatest thing about this whole season was beginning of the year, Gary Bettman was like, hey, this franchise is here to stay. Hockey in the desert works 100%. Couple months in, meets Ryan Smith and the collective that has all the sports in Utah, like Real Salt Lake, Utah Jazz, a bunch of other sports a bunch of other teams that he owns in Utah. And then the script suddenly switches from hockey belongs in the desert to, oh, maybe we could probably move them and give them a franchise. And, fuck giving them an expansion, having our expansion draft in like 2 to 3 years. We can give you this team right now that doesn't have proper, quote unquote, used to be adequate, but now not adequate enough facilities for NHL players. I think the ball started to roll a little bit more when more stuff came to light about, the Coyotes having issues paying hotels on the road and not paying up the bill, and basically those hotels saying, like, you need to basically rally together and say, oh, we're not, if these guys come to your city, don't book them because we're not going to pay. And basically making them pay up front instead of, traditionally, give them a check or whatever, pay it off and all that stuff. Like, I think the ball really just kind of went downhill super fast once Brian Smith was like, yeah, we want a franchise. And then Bettman kind of went, okay, now other stuff is going on. And then you find out that fucking Shane Doan didn't get his retirement banner. It was just kind of left there by the Coyotes when they moved out of their stadium to go over where Mullet Arena is, and then a fan had to basically dumpster dive and grab it,
Yeah,
and
I think
shove it away.
I think it's less because of things like that and more just comes down to the stain that it left on the league, like the not paying and the fact that, as Tougie alluded to, that there's money to be made for the league now. And yes, hockey works in the desert. We've seen it work. We know it can work, and it's going to work because it's going to go back there. It can't be Marullo, and I hope it is still the Coyotes. It's great branding. It fits. But for me, the thing that always stands out the most through all this is that the fans get absolutely fucked.
Mhm.
First of all, they were gaslit this entire season and years previously by this ownership group. This is going to happen. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And the whole time they're just not doing it.
Right.
And the cherry on top is the fact that Coyotes fans have suffered not only through bad ownership and everything else going on, but a shit team with various ownership groups who wouldn't pay to have a good team. And now, once they've collected all those draft picks, they've made a ton of draft selections. They got Gunther, Keller. They got all these cool young players come. Seems like they're on the cusp of becoming a bubble team. Nope, it's in Utah. And maybe in 5 years, you guys can have an expansion draft.
Right.
That is... it's not the team that got ripped. It's the team that got ripped away. The branding, not. Obviously, it's still the branding, but that's your team. The team that you've watched build up, the team that is supposed to be good in the next couple of years, and now you're going to have to wait more than half of a decade, and likely a decade to have a true contender. Despite how it has, even if the expansion thing kicks off, very, very quickly, you're going to wait at least half a decade to a decade to be able to watch contending hockey, most likely in Arizona.
You mentioned kind of the stockpile that they have. Over the next 3 years, the Utah whatevers, more on that in a second. I was going to say more on that in a second. Hold on. The Utah whatevers have 3 first-round picks, all 3 of their own.
Oh, I thought that was... You said 3 years. I thought you said 2 years.
Just 3 total. It's
okay.
Coyotes' actual draft picks. They have 10 second-round picks over the next 3 years.
Amazing.
And 7 third-rounders.
They essentially have a expansion draft caliber team as it is. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year or two, hell, I thought the Coyotes were going to make a run this year because they look strong coming out of the gate. It was surprising.
Yeah, they fell off a fucking cliff midway through the season.
But yeah, no, Utah is literally getting something 10 times better than an expansion. They're getting, like Endo said, it's a team with skill wise, on ice product is expansion caliber in today's expansion rules.
Yep.
But they don't have a barren prospect pool as Seattle or Vegas did when they started. Right, they have all the history and on all these picks, and
this worked out so fucking well for the ownership group in Utah.
Yeah. They seem competent too because they jumped on a good deal.
Yes, they pounced on this opportunity, and like you said, now they have a team that is a souped-up version of an expansion team. This is a better situation than they ever would have had they just gone through the expansion route or the expansion option itself.
Yeah.
Everything in terms of a shrewd ownership group that Arizona did not have, essentially.
Yes.
And I was drinking the Kool-Aid because I wanted it to work. I did. And I am very much of the similar opinion to you, Sin, that it's not going to work with that ownership group. There's just no reason to have any faith whatsoever. And I think that's the worst part for the Coyotes fan base at this point is you can look forward to what? Oh, and in up to 5 years, the same ownership group that just dropped the ball and saw us move is going to get another crack at it.
In a worse situation.
yeah, we're going to get him back in a worse situation than what we were looking at when we lost him in the first place.
Yeah.
I do not know I don't think it works if it's him. If it's the Meruelo like ownership group, I don't think it works at this point.
Like he's made $600 million right now, as it is. $600 million on the sale of the team. He has the bill. He has the $1 billion, but apparently it's like one point of it is with $600 million. It's if he goes to get the team back, he has to give back that money. So it's basically
how you come
like
up
a
with
loan.
the $600 million figure because he has to pay back.
He did still technically sell the team for more than what he paid for it.
Yeah. But $6 million, I don't think he profited $6 million at the most.
I don't know if it was
$600 million.
I don't know if it was 600 million or 300 million or something like that, but I know what Endo is referring to. I don't know the exact number. I don't have it in front of me, but I know what he is referring to as the wind carries my arms.
Yeah, but I thought like he has to pay back like NHL.
He will have to give back
like yeah.
I think it's like $1 billion or some shit like that. Like it's pretty ridiculous. So
it is where is it right here? It is a $1.2 billion sale to the Utah group. And he has to give back $1 billion to, I think it's either a certain amount of it. Okay, so he bought the Coyotes for $425 million.
Yeah.
So subtract that from 1.2, he's made Sportico recent value at $675 million, by far the lowest in the NHL. So basically, if he is to get the team back, he has to give back the money, essentially. So he could say, fuck it, hold on to the rights of the team, and not try to win out the bidding for the arena. Because he has to, if he wants respect from the Coyotes faithful to actually, support this hockey team, he's got to buy that land in the auction coming up in June, and he's got to overspend completely. And I'm hearing that apparently the land auction right now estimated to go to 14 to 15 million at least. So it's going to be even higher than that.
It's a mess when it looked like, and referenced like it was going to be everything else. Like it is the polar opposite of what it looked like the situation could have been when this guy got the team, the reason for him getting the team, and what it enabled him to do from a gambling perspective as an owner of a casino chain or whatever. And just, it's all just a mess. And I do think we will see hockey in Arizona again. I do not think it'll be within 5 years. I hope it's not within 5 years, because if it is, I just don't see how it works. I don't see how anybody can trust that ownership group to be competent whatsoever at this point,
Yeah.
So that said, Utah, you mentioned the Yetis, which is one of numerous trademark applications that have been filed by the ownership group. And I want to play a bit of King of the Hill here in terms of, out of those parked potential names, which one would you guys prefer to see for this team? So we will say that the Yetis are number one on the board right now. Would you go with the Utah Yetis or the Utah Mammoth?
Yetis.
The Utah Yetis or the Utah Ice?
Ice
is decent, but I still like Yetis.
I'll be tiebreaker here. I'd go with Yetis.
Fuck you guys.
Sorry.
Get good.
The Utah Yetis.
The Winnipeg Ice, the Kootenay Ice. The Winnipeg Ice branding was sick. I will say that. If we do something similar to that for the Utah Ice, chef's kiss.
The Utah Yetis or the Utah Venom?
Yetis.
Venom.
What's even venomous there besides the wasps? And I'm not talking about the insect. Got him.
We'll let the Yetis continue. The Utah Yetis or the Utah Fury?
Yetis.
Yeah, it is. The Yetis or the Blizzard? The Yetis, right?
Yeah, Yetis still.
Right. Yeti, yeah.
The Yetis or the Outlaws?
That's a
Yeti.
tough one because I'm a really big fan of the way things sound. Utah Yetis, they both have a very similar mouth shape, and it's not alliteration, but it evokes that same thing.
Mm.
But Utah Outlaws, it almost kind of rhymes. It's an off rhyme, which is good. The branding for that could be pretty cool, but I still have to favor the Yetis over that because I'm thinking of it as the entire thing. Jerseys would look sick with the Yetis
Hmm.
logo. I'm thinking of the mascot. It's fucking there.
Yep.
It's all there.
The final one: Utah Yetis or Utah HC, as in Utah Hockey Club.
God bless the hockey team.
Yeah, it still has to be Yetis. I don't know. Are they just gonna? Yeah, it has to be Yetis, man.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think a lot of the other options are interesting. I do think some of them kind of end up sounding XFL-ish, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you were to load up like Blitz the League, the video game, you would expect to see a team called the Venom or the Fury. It's like
Venom.
it's almost a little bit too gimmicky to me. The Utah Hockey Club, very much in line with the Washington football team before they became the Commanders.
Yeah.
What about HC Utah? Like kind of like HC Davos.
I mean, maybe, but then it's like, is that the long term, or are you just parking that until you decide for sure what you want the branding to be? Which seems likely given how little time they kind of have to get prepped. Like we're talking about a team that is going to be playing hockey in Utah in 5 months. You know?
The good news is like the only thing pulling for perhaps Venom or even Outlaws is like you get a lot cooler color scheme potential. And
I just want them to be different
that other people don't use. Yeah, like with the Yetis, we're gonna see probably light blues and shit. Which, frosted. To be fair, there's not enough light blues.
Mm.
Besides that, the powder blue Winnipeg Jets alternate, which the color was great, the logo sucked. But yeah, I would love to see some. I don't know, man. Like there's good potential for like color schemes for a few of those names. But yeah, I'm the Yetis. It just fits, I think. And it's hot. It's not, I mean, it can be anywhere with snow related, but and it just feels hockey related because Yetis are, that form of, whatever you want to call it, the Bigfoot, whatever. The Yetis are always in snow region. That's their name for it when they come from snow regions. So it just fits with the winter sport type thing.
I'm intrigued to see what they end up doing. Like I said, as much as we have a lot of stuff that's already gone down over the last couple of weeks, outside of that discussion, we're going to park it and just say we missed the window. Let's move on. Let's talk about some playoffs. And I think there's pretty much no better way to start than talking about the Rangers and Caps, given that that is the first series that came to its conclusion. As, heading into that matchup, I think there was a tiny bit of conversation about like, it'd be a hell of an upset if Washington were to do it. That'd be a hell of a story. But this series played out, I think, as everyone expected. Like the Rangers just kicked the shit out of them. I mean, the biggest topic of conversation is Alex Ovechkin literally held to without a point in the entire series. I mean, this was, we have seen sweeps in the past where, the series has been close and, maybe they could have won a game or two.
Eastern Conference Finals last year.
Yeah, Christ. We'll talk about Carolina soon, which I'm interested in, but this was never close. I mean, this was just the Rangers making a statement that I feel like they had to make in terms of like
last season,
yeah, like they've been viewed as a competitive team and a competitive franchise for a couple of years now, but have they ever really taken that next step towards being viewed as like, oh yeah, they are, legit contenders? I don't know if that was the case. This year, it feels different because it's like, okay, you're playing a team that barely made the playoffs, that made the playoffs with like this brutal goal differential.
Negative 37 goal differential.
Like you should have kicked the shit out of them, and you did. That's a good way to start, you know?
Yes. Be interesting to see who their next opponent's going to be. But Rempe needs to stop jumping into hits. You're 6'7". There's no need for that, dude.
Yeah.
Learn to hit. You got to learn to hit normally, or else they are going to call you. Like, I agree. Maybe that's a borderline interference call when he hit TVR, but you jumped into the hit. That's unnecessary. They're going to call something. You're 6'7", bro.
Right. I think this is necessarily a ton to talk about with that particular series, just because, again, like it was so one-sided. I mean, you had all but 4 Rangers skaters end up with at least a point in the series. Like they did so well in terms of shutting things down on one end, putting up points on the other. Again, OV held to without a point in the series, and honestly,
Crazy.
out of 22, half the team, out of 22 skaters, 10 registered a point in the series for Washington.
That's
they
bad.
scored 5. They scored 7 goals in 4 games.
That's so bad.
Their top goal scorer. Any guesses? There's no way. But any guesses on who led the Caps in scoring in this 4-game series?
Henry
Spoiler
Flapierre.
alert. There's no way in hell you're getting this.
Fairbury.
Holy
Tom
shit, you
Wilson.
got it.
I did?
What?
Yeah.
What?
Fairbury! Let's go!
Defenseman Martin Fehervary, or however the hell you pronounce it, led the team with 2 goals in 4 games.
Oh, I'm the best. I'm just
Damn.
the best.
So, I think this is what most people expected for the Caps. They are in a situation now moving forward, but it's like, okay, you do have good players like Hendrix Lapierre, but it's all about whether or not Ovechkin can break the record over the next 2 to 3 seasons. In the regular season, playoffs are, I mean, again, they shouldn't have made it.
No.
They shouldn't have made it. Teams like Pittsburgh and Detroit dropped the ball. Washington never should have been there in the first place.
Nope.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The question of who will the Rangers play comes down to Carolina or the New York Islanders. The Hurricanes up 3-1 in the series. If I am not mistaken, we are recording this on Monday night, and indeed they play on Tuesday. I think heading into the series, the Islanders had a shot. You know, they're one of those teams that we kind of talked about. Like, okay, in theory,
Wet blanket.
yes, defensive, physical, good goaltending. You get them into the playoffs, and maybe they can give some other teams trouble. I think this has been a good statement for Carolina. I mean, they almost pulled off the sweep. The Islanders, stay alive with an overtime goal in Game 4. I just can't really envision a situation where the Islanders reverse sweep the Carolina Hurricanes. The Canes are just too damn strong.
Yeah, and particularly how when you think back to that Game 3 meltdown that the Islanders had, dude, how much different does the series look? Potentially, maybe they don't play the same way in Game 3 if it's only a 2-1 series, but dude, they could have maybe been tied if they didn't do that. Was a horrific meltdown from a team. I haven't seen anything like that in a long time. Actually, since 2019.
I thought you were going to say since Nashville last night, but
no, 2019, because I have to take a stab at Vegas. They still hurdle.
That's fair. But yeah, for the Islanders, I just can't envision a situation where they make this happen. Especially too, like the guy who's supposed to be their guy hasn't been their guy. Ilya Sorokin did not start off the playoffs as the starter. And when he did play, he survived 27 minutes before being pulled for Semyon Varlamov, who has a .930 save percentage in 4 appearances. You have that tandem for a reason. It's because Varlamov is starter caliber, but he shouldn't be the guy. No. It's kind of like it's very close to an all-Mark Swayman on paper. To have the guy in Ilya Sorokin struggle that heavily, puts that team behind the 8 ball, I think, just a little bit too much. And then
man. He and
Carolina is
Shesterkin
just
are
too damn strong.
28, man. When did that happen?
Hmm?
Sorokin and Shesterkin are both 28. When did that happen? I know goalies get brought along a lot slower, but it's just, I was like, yeah, they're what? Are they 26 by now? Nope, 28.
Oh, and I can't wait to talk about the third member of the Russian three in terms of that next generation of great Russian goaltending.
Sergei Bubtitsky. Let's go.
Not him. Not him.
Excuse me, the disrespect. You said a trio of great Russian goaltenders and you disrespect Bubtitsky like that?
But Bubtitsky was already here.
Ah.
Back in the day.
We talking about it? Oh, Samsonov, of course.
Yeah. Yes. It was Shesterkin, Sorokin, Samsonov. We'll talk more about them in a second. But yeah, Carolina's
a dive hole as wide as the Volga River. Ilya Samsonov.
God damn it. Oh, fuck.
How about that?
God damn it.
Yeah, I know my Russian geography.
Carolina's going to win that series. I think the Islanders had a chance. Like you said, the collapse. Okay, you win game 4, but Carolina's just too damn strong. And then obviously when the time comes,
kind of a great counter for that too. For the Islanders play style. Carolina plays so fast. They can play off the rush. They can forecheck you. They play great defense themselves. Like, bro, in that game where the Islanders melted, they had one shot in the third period.
Yeah.
That's pathetic.
I can't wait to talk about Rangers and Hurricanes, but we'll get there once it's official.
Yes.
Let's get to it now. I think a lot of people viewed this as the main event, but we'll talk about it now because Ilya Samsonov was mentioned. The Boston Bruins have a 3-1 series lead on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Game 5 on Tuesday in Boston. The discourse that we have seen since Saturday night has been beyond entertaining because you could argue whether or not the Bruins should be up 3-1. Heading into this series, I wasn't able to make videos or any of my normal kind of, let's simulate stuff that I normally do. But on Twitter, I put up that I thought the Leafs were going to win the series because for me heading into it, it was more on the Bruins to prove themselves than it was the Leafs, which I don't think has been the case in a series between these two teams. Normally it's, okay, the Leafs have to prove themselves here. But for the Bruins, best regular season of all time, blow a 3-1 lead to Florida last year. A large part of that is Jim Montgomery got outcoached, tried to rely on an injured Linus Ullmark for a bit too long. I had a lot of doubts. Heading into this series, though, and now as we've seen it go through 4 games, Jim Montgomery has stuffed Sheldon Keefe into a locker in terms of coaching.
That's what great coaches do. They learn from their mistakes, and Montgomery learned from his mistake early on, says we're going to rotate, and then he chooses the hot hand out of the two, which is smart. I think if he stuck to it, like just rotating when Ullmark was clearly the inferior goaltender, I would say he hadn't learned anything from last year because he went into something with an idea and didn't evolve. But this time, it is a mastermind. It's fucking atomic bong versus coughing baby in the coaching matchup. Like it is insane.
Like you said with the goaltending last year, it's like we're just going to go with Linus Ullmark and step away from our rotation. This year, we're going to go with our rotation, but then step away when the time is right. And it's clear that Swayman is the guy, and he has been outstanding in this series. And the Bruins in general have just, there's so much to talk about with this series.
Yes.
And you want to give the Bruins proper credit, but so much of it revolves around the Leafs' shortcomings and how stylistically they are getting destroyed, how slow the Leafs have been on their zone exits and
entries
and turnovers and the physicality, which doesn't do much when you're playing another team like Boston that thrives on the physicality, and how the Leafs are playing too slow, allowing the Bruins to actually get settled defensively. Like that's what killed the Bruins last year was that the Florida Panthers played so fucking fast that the Bruins couldn't keep up. That's what we're seeing now between Florida and Tampa, which we'll get to in a second. Like I said, so much of this series, you want to give the Bruins proper credit because they deserve it. But the flip side of the coin is the Leafs dropping the ball in so many ways. And while the Leafs have come back from 3-1 down to force Game 7 against the Bruins in the past, and the Bruins blew a 3-1 lead last year, I don't think too many people have confidence that that's going to happen this year, even though it could. And it's because of just everything going on with that team and the stars, and people are already writing the eulogy for the core 4 or 5, whatever, which sounds really familiar to prior years where it's like they have to do it or the core is going to get blown up. I've heard that for 4 years, and every single one of them are still there. I don't get why this year is so drastically different.
Because Shanahan should get fired. Whether he will or not, it depends. But we all know at this point, at least for me, it is very clear that the reason Kyle Dubas got fired is because he was going to trade one of the core 4, likely Marner. Because Marner, his no movement clause kicked in on July 1st. And obviously with all those exit interviews, he had time to get a deal for Marner where Marner could have nothing to say about where he was going. And I know Leafs, and I know there's a very vocal sect of Leaf fans who like to dunk on Kyle Dubas and raise up Treliving. They're very, very tribal in whatever is currently under the Leafs logo. But it looks like Dubas was right, and it looks like Shanahan was wrong. And you're paying for it now. And yeah, sure, MLSE makes a ton of money. Maybe they like Shanahan for what he brings to, making them a ton of money. But guess what? You'd make a shit ton more money if you had longer playoff runs. With how much you charge all those suits to go sit in the front row and network and not watch the games, all those executive press boxes, like you could make more if you get 2 extra rounds every single year. And that's in my opinion, Shanahan has to be gone if they fall, and Marner needs to be traded. You can't trade Tavares unless you retain 50%. So get rid of that idea. Also, strip him of captaincy. That dude is a robot. It's kind of wild. Like, I understand leading by example. Sharks had Marlowe, but that guy, showed some emotion, showed some fire a lot of the time too. But yeah, I don't see anything from Tavares.
Endo. We've talked about your Leafs fandom over the past couple of years, and how to describe it. How the
Endo doesn't care until they get to the playoffs. Endo, we're in the playoffs. How you feel?
I was gonna say that's most Leafs fans, and a lot of Leafs fans now. Like, instead of when this core was first put together, and the walls were coming down, and it's like we're choosing to believe they're at the stage where the walls are going back up of "you won't hurt me again, you fucks." Where are you right now with the Leafs being down 3-1 in the first round matchup against the Bruins again?
Send them to the ranch. Not even joking. Send them to the ranch. I have no words. There's nothing to say that it has not already been said for the past 2 years that I've been on this podcast, and for the past 26 years that I've been alive and a Leaf fan. 26 years next month. There comes a certain point where you can hear all the talking points on social media, on radio shows and all that. Oh, they're not good enough. They're not this and not that. It's like, okay, speak with your wallets. Stop paying for these fucking games. Show them that, I don't know, you're not going to sit in front of a team that struggles to win against low-end teams at home. The record that they had against Arizona, because we're mentioning Arizona again, they hadn't won a home game against Arizona in over a decade.
They lost,
and for over a decade, Yeah, and Chicago. And for over a decade, that Arizona team has not been the best hockey club in the NHL. I think during that time, they made the playoffs once and got further than the Leafs did in their past decade of getting into the playoffs.
I'm going to ask you a question. Why do you think that is? What do you think are some of the culprits for that? And well, we'll start with that. But I think it has a lot to do with also their playoff performances too. But what do you think? What is your interpretation as our resident Leaf fan of why they seemingly play down to those opponents and then why they fall apart in the playoffs? Like what is your interpretation?
They don't have that drive. They don't have that second gear. They're NHL players. They're great in the regular season because they're getting paid and that's what their contracts are for. They just don't have that second gear when it comes to high clutch moments. When they're supposed to be on top and be consistent and, play constructive hockey, they don't do it. If it's a bad team, there's a chance they're going to lose that game. The Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens have had our ass this season. And those teams are in the bottom 10 of the NHL standings at the end of the season. If we are a competent hockey club, you should be beating those teams regardless night in, night out. If I see that the Leafs are playing Montreal, who are in a rebuild, or Ottawa, who are in the middle of just getting out of a rebuild into a retool, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I should know that they're going to win this game by at least 3 fucking goals. And you could talk about it being defense, not doing anything in the postseason or the regular season. Talk about offense. This team was the second highest goals for in the NHL. They have scored 2 goals max a fucking game. Your top 6 players, nowhere to be seen. Going into game 2, your bottom 6 were outperforming your entire roster. Ryan Reeves looked like the best player on the fucking ice. That fourth line was amazing. And then Nylander comes in and they break up the fourth line. Makes no sense to me. It's absolutely dumb. I'm dumbfounded with what they've done, basically. I'm surprised that Sheldon Keefe still has a job. I think that if he loses this game, they have to get rid of a coach. You have Guy Boucher running your power play. And you've had 11 chances on the fucking power play going into game 4. Shut your mouth. Shut your fucking mouth. I haven't said anything about the Leafs all year long. All year long. I'm going to have my fucking moment and save your voice. God fucking damn it. 11 chances and they've only scored once. Playoff officiating.
They're actually 1 for 14 now.
That's even better. Makes my argument even better.
I'm gonna.
You can't do that, and you can't do that and be a playoff team, let alone a regular season team. This team on paper, every year on paper, they're supposed to be a great team. They're supposed to be amazing. They're supposed to be absolutely fantastic, sell out and everything. This, with that quote unquote core 4, whatever you have there, you should be winning the fucking President's Trophy every single fucking season. Every season.
Numbers
and then blame it on the curse.
I got some numbers to break up your rant, but I think this quite illustrates some of the issues as you were alluding towards, but this is gonna put them into perspective. Austin Matthews in the regular season has a point per game of 1.15. So he scores, a solid amount over 1 point per game in the regular season. In the playoffs, Austin Matthews' point per game drops to 0.87. That is a nearly 30% decrease in his production. And I could probably go and do all the math on Marner, and Nylander might not be as steep of a drop off, but that is a theme throughout the entirety of their lineup. And that's not good. And I think part of it also comes to coaching, because how do the Leafs enter the zone throughout the regular season?
They don't. Well, they do.
No,
Yeah,
like,
they
yeah.
all.
What's their strategy? Because I
What?
Endo didn't watch the Leafs this year.
Oh, okay, true.
I
All right,
didn't watch.
fine.
I didn't watch them all
Well,
regular
the
season.
Leafs are they carry it through the blue line most of the time.
Yep.
And what
They
happens
drop
in
it
the
at
playoffs
center
every
for the
single
trailing
year?
defenseman. Yeah,
Yeah,
drop it at
and then
center for
what?
the trailing defenseman.
But what happens in the playoffs every single year?
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
can you carry the puck into the zone as you do in the regular season?
No, you got to dump and chase.
Okay, so why is your strategy to carry the puck into the zone during the regular season if everyone kind of knows that shit doesn't work in the playoffs? Like what?
Because
What is the
because
logic?
Sheldon Keefe is a AHL coach who got lucky with getting a massively stacked AHL team to lead them to the Calder Cup winning. That's what it is. That Marlies team was fucking stacked. Tons of players who ended up not only becoming, NHLers, but also becoming top 6 forwards on other clubs. Mason Marchment, Trevor Moore, who else? There's more. There's fucking more. It's great.
And then they were all traded for nothing.
Exactly.
So I'll say this. First and foremost, the whole Guy Boucher reference, for those who don't remember, former head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Ottawa Senators, who was known for employing the 1-3-1 trap, a very defensive strategy that we've talked about on the show in the past. Again, that is who is running the Leafs power play currently.
Why
Yeah.
is it even fucking PK
We got
guy?
a trap specialist. Throw him in, run the power play, baby.
Yeah.
Fuck me. Put Matt Holtro on the power play. Fuck.
Again, for all the talk of the grit of it all, it's like, Ryan Reeves, he had that one game where he had a couple hits, so you can't really judge him anymore. It's just a really poorly constructed roster. Like, we all knew that. And the problem is, in terms of goaltending, obviously Ilya Samsonov has not been great. He's had moments, but he currently has an .884 save percentage from 4 appearances. Joseph Wall, in relief in Game 4, looked better, and I'd imagine that's who they're going with moving forward in this series.
If
Defensively,
they don't, Sheldon Keefe is absolutely broken. If he goes back to Samsonov.
It's like defensively, you have these physical defensive stalwarts like Ilya Lyubushkin, Simon Benoit, Joel Edmondson, but that is leading to problems on zone exits.
Yeah, they're puck
and
moving
not
is
being
awful.
And even if you get the puck out, you're not able to move the puck fast enough. The Bruins are trapping the blue line, and then you don't necessarily have the pace or the grit up front to get into the corners and win those battles against the Bruins. So they're having a lot of struggles there.
I think the biggest, not to cut you off and I won't go on for long, the biggest red flag for me in that they're just simply not fast enough, which is bizarre because they used to be a really fast team. On a 4-on-3 power play, they struggled to gain the zone.
Yeah.
That is disgusting. Continue, Tougie.
I mean, they had a power play towards the end of Game 4 where they didn't get a single shot on goal. I mean, their power play has been abysmal.
Yeah.
Say what you want about officiating, missed calls, this, the bias, whatever.
You're 1 for 14. You don't need power plays.
Yes, and everybody knows our opinion at this point, my opinion especially, but it's like officiating sucks.
Yeah.
The end.
Everyone.
There are missed calls
thinks
against
they're
both teams. There are egregious no calls. It happens all the fucking time. Might it happen against the Leafs in terms of no calls more than maybe, but again, 1 for 14 on the power play. And here again, they didn't have William Nylander for the first 3 games, which they were deeming as migraine issues. There's a lot of questions as to whether or not they're being honest about that. Look, I don't know. End of the day, though, William Nylander's only played in 1 game, didn't record a point in Game 4. John Tavares, 1 point in 4 games, 1 goal,
Yikes.
making $11 million until the end of next year. That's not good enough. Mitch Marner, whether or not he is, it seems to be clearly he's not 100%. There's something going on, ankle injury or something like that.
Man, Draisaitl had 30 points in 14 games on, like, no ankle. Y'all remember that? Like,
Yeah.
it's the excuses for me are just running out. The main problem with Marner is that he doesn't attack the middle of the ice. He did it once and he scored, and then he doesn't attack the middle of the ice ever. He's such a like a dainty little butterfly on the perimeter.
I mean, Paul Bissonnette nailed it.
Yes.
Even if it led directly to Marner scoring in the third period of game 4, like he nailed it in terms of what the issues are with Marner. Obviously it's a hockey thing where, oh, well, he's got to go out there. It's like, again, we've talked about it before. The fine line between Mitch Marner, what do you want to argue? Is he at 50% right now because of this ankle injury, potential ankle injury, whatever? If he's at 50%, how much worse is Noah Gregor at 100%? You know, at least Noah Gregor is going to be like, obviously he has nowhere near the offensive talents of a Mitch Marner, but at least he's going to go out there. He's going to skate hard. He's going to hit people and might be able to win some more battles in the corners that Mitch Marner is absolutely not going to win right now. Whether or not, again, for Marner, it's an injury thing, an effort thing, whatever. But that's always my thing, is just, okay, if we're talking about someone being that banged up, like the guy has 2 points in 4 games, but, you know, in between those points has been horrific play. And again, is that an effort thing, an injury thing? I don't know. I'd tend to think it's an injury thing, but whatever. And then there's Austin Matthews, who has 3 points in 4 games, but just 1 goal for a 69-point score. A lot of talk about some sort of illness going on. And again, a lot of people doubting the legitimacy of that or whatever the hell. And again, that always kind of raises the question of, okay, like, yeah, it happens to teams every year. You know, star players get hurt before the playoffs or something comes up and they just can't keep it together. But that's also kind of the point that we were all reminded of last year when the Florida Panthers barnstormed their way to the Stanley Cup final. Again, beating the Bruins, beating the Leafs in 5, sweeping the fucking Hurricanes in the conference final, for fuck's sake. They get to the Stanley Cup final and just had too many injuries at that point, and their depth was too slim. So for the Leafs, you head into the season not getting rid of somebody, and surprise, surprise, now you have Marner and Matthews, Nylander not at 100%, and then obviously someone like Bobby McMahon's been hurt too, and that's hurt them a little bit as well. So you don't have the depth that you need. We've seen that. We see it every year. We literally just saw it with the Panthers last year, where it's, okay, you either don't have the depth that you need, or you're just like, nope, Austin Matthews at 60%, we're more comfortable with that than we are with, you know, again, you can throw a Noah Gregor out there. I mean, shit, you know, AHL, like, I certainly understand Matthews on 50% being more appealing than Nick Abruzzese or Kyle fuck your handshake line Clifford. You know, I certainly get that, but again, it comes down to roster construction. It comes down to timing, luck, injuries, and all of that. But you also got to make your own luck in a playoff series. And I don't know. I still see a scenario in which the Leafs could win this series, despite, you know, it being much more slim at this point. But that also doesn't erase the very legitimate and valid critiques that are going on right now. And that leads to the thought of, what is the best thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs moving forward? And the answer is, unless they're winning the Stanley Cup this year, the best thing for them is to lose this series and get some of those much, much needed changes now, as opposed to like, well, we won the series, so it's fine. Like, clearly it's not fine. So, any other thoughts on this particular series?
Yeah. I think the Bruins are getting better as the series goes on, which is also not a great sign for the Leafs. Bruins game 1, they won. They didn't wow me. I thought that was a winnable game for the Leafs if they didn't completely collapse in the way that they did, and if Samsonov was better. Game 2, obviously Toronto won. I thought that was Boston's worst game by far. Like, they just kind of looked disengaged.
Yeah.
And then I unfortunately caught pieces of games 3 and 4, but the last one especially, I actually was able to watch a lot of it back on replay, and they absolutely dominated that game. And the fact that and that's again what good teams do. And I was seeing a whole less physicality from the Leafs at times, but like when I think back to that game 1 where they were just bodies flying all over the place and they were to their detriment putting themselves out of position for a Beecher to score. Yeah, for the Leafs, they just don't seem to have any direction, and they also seem in denial because post game 4. Riley was like, I don't think we got off to a slow start. And when I was watching that first period back after I'd heard all these quotes, I was like, the fuck do you call that then? Like, you were just getting absolutely smacked around. And then, of course, Sheldon Keefe, nothing wrong with our efforts. I don't think guys are frustrated. I mean, where to even start? That's, I think, comes back to kind of gaslighting. My only thought is that he's taking the fall for his team, but at some fucking point, they've got to be held accountable. Like, your stars have to be held accountable at some point. And I don't know if he's doing that in the room because it doesn't seem like it. Because this is an every year thing. If they were being held accountable, they would change. And if not, well, you're clearly not the man for the job if you can't hold them accountable and get them to be coachable. Maybe they're uncoachable. Maybe we'll have a tell-all from Sheldon Keefe in a few years about how fucking uncoachable Matthews, Nylander, Marner are. But it's just that organization in a lot of ways, the team, the on-ice product, and everyone behind the bench, they just seem like they're in shambles and they don't have an answer. And that's not a great place to be in.
Ryan O'Reilly was right.
Yeah. The final Eastern Conference matchup is Florida and Tampa, which is actually about to start as we're recording this, so the game might already be over by the time we get this podcast up. And, of course, the series could be over. The Panthers have a 3-1 lead. The Lightning staved off elimination in game number 4 with a good bounce back, although they almost fucking blew it. There's the crazy Mikhail Sergachev thing coming back from a broken leg.
Oh, my God.
I have no idea. Modern medicine is what we'll deem that as, because holy shit.
Yeah,
but
we're it all.
The NHL's version of Kurt on a perk.
Basically. In terms of the Lightning's odds of coming back here, I think, it's nice to see that there was some pushback there. But at the end of the day, you're talking about Andrei Vasilevsky with an .899 save percentage in 4 games. The star players for the Lightning, Kucherov and Stamkos, each with 6 points, although they're all assists for Kucherov and 5 goals for Stamkos. It's the depth. The bottom 6 for the Lightning have 4 points between them. And 2 of those 4 belong to Nick Paul, who has 2 goals in the series.
Worth that contract?
It just kind of feels like they finally hit that breaking point, right? Like, they lose to the Leafs in the first round last year. They're probably going to lose to the Panthers here. They have stretched it about as thin as they can.
I'm happy if I'm a Tampa fan.
Yeah, I mean, look, if this is the end of the run, if this is Steven Stamkos' last run with this team, then yeah, I mean, you can't be disappointed in any way whatsoever. You can't even be like, oh, did they leave anything on the table? Look, they made 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row and won 2 of them.
Yeah, that is an incredible run that team had. And you can only do that for so long because you're constantly pushing up the cap. You're overpaying certain players, giving them more term because that's what you do. When your window's open, you go all in. I do want to pivot over because we were talking about Keefe a little bit and the fact that Tampa came back and won. John Cooper's comments. Did you see any of his comments? Yeah, about how basically, if you don't believe, then don't show up. And put that side by side with Sheldon Keefe saying, "I don't have any problem with the effort. I don't think we're frustrated." That's putting a fucking ultimatum to your team, setting accountability. So many things done by a good coach, maybe the best coach in the NHL. With debatable, but John Cooper, that's one of the best NHL coaches, and what he did and how he challenges his team and basically laid out the thing of come hungry and come to fucking win. And then there's Sheldon Keefe being like, "Oh, he's got to coddle these guys. You don't want to, they're all the pressure from the media. Don't worry, guys, I'll take care of it. Like, we can't hold you guys accountable." Like they're fucking men now. They're all 26 plus. Right.
Yeah. For the Lightning. Go ahead, Enda.
I think that's why Keefe coddles them so much, because a lot of them were under his watch when he was with the Marlies, and he kind of feels like it's like, I don't know, like a dad to them. If that's a weird thing to say, but like a relationship like that, where like he basically nurtured them to be NHL superstars in a way. Like I keep saying, like he's an AHL coach who got lucky with NHL caliber players on an AHL roster. Like that Marlies series went 7 games, but that game 7 was definable, and that was probably the best hockey they played all season. But do I think Sheldon Keefe was a good signing for them to bring up, especially on a 2-year extension coming up as well too, which I don't think they're gonna go through with the extension. They might just fire him if he blows it for game 5.
They should.
Yeah, they should fire him anyway. Honestly,
I wanted to say for Tampa, they're at the point right now where the Pittsburgh Penguins were a few years ago, and the Penguins, of course, have made the decision to push and to try and squeeze one more great run out of that phenomenal core. I wonder if the Lightning do the same thing, or if they say, we can let go of Stamkos. We can maybe take a bit of a step back here, try to restock a little bit. Like, I wonder what their moves are over the next couple of years.
I think if they do let Stamkos go, even if they get him back, if they get him back or let him go, I think they push for one or at least one more year, because they're going to look at the cap space they have from Stamkos. And there's going to be that lingering thing of like, okay, we lost him for free, that we got to make use of the cap space now, rather than, okay, we can, we traded that guy, you're able to get certain assets back. I think if he walks, they're going to try to utilize that cap space for like at least one more push. Then after that, they should cut the cord. Who knows if they will, but yeah, you're going to have hella good assets to move. I don't have contract info, but Point and like Kucherov,
they have cap space coming up. Like Stamkos is 8.5, Duclair's $3 million, Dumba's 3.9. Who again, both of them were deadline acquisitions. Like they have cap space coming off the books, and no like major players to have to re-sign this year. Next year, at the end of next year, Victor Hedman's deal is up, which again, he's making under $7.9 million at 33 years old.
I thought he had an extra year.
And then Kucherov's deal is up at the end of 2027. So this is a very interesting time for them, in terms of like, okay, what do they look to do moving forward? And again, that
would be to cut the cord now.
Yeah, and again, it's under the presumption that they lose the series, which who the fuck knows? I mean, Jesus, you wouldn't put it past Tampa to be able to pull off a freaking upset like this. But the Florida Panthers are also absurd. Like the only real weakness you could see in the Panthers right now is, despite him being a Vezina finalist, Bobrovsky has an .874 save percentage in this series so far. Like he has not been particularly great, even though he has one of the greatest fucking playoff saves I have ever seen in my life earlier in this series. So
yeah.
He continues to just kind of be a fucking enigma. Like, you never know what the hell you're going to get out of Sergei Bobrovsky. But very likely, obviously, that the Florida Panthers are going to move on. And Unless something changes, Rangers, Canes, Bruins, Panthers as your final four in the East, which both of those matchups would be fucking outstanding. Although certainly I, don't know how much confidence I'd have in the Bruins to beat the Panthers, but it would be an interesting rematch to say the least. Anything else on any of the Eastern Conference matchups before we switch to the West? I have a hunch we're going to have less to say about the West anyway.
Are we even missing a series? I think we hit all the series. Right?
We hit all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we can shift over to the West.
All right. Well, we have 3 different 3-1 series, and then a 2-1.
Wait,
which, yeah, there are 3 different 3-1 series in the West right now.
Sorry, I was thinking. I'm like, no, Dallas and Vegas is 2-1, but yeah,
it is, and that's where we're going to start with Vegas being up 2-1 on Dallas.
Ooh.
Very nearly 3-0. I mean, it took Dallas an overtime win.
And it was their best game of the series.
It was. I mean, they fucking dominated that game, and I mean,
Golden Knights
barely
are so cracked. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yay for Hurdle, though.
Barely came away with the win in Game 3. This is exactly what people thought. Vegas being the second wildcard team was them being a second wildcard team in name only. Like, obviously, you get Mark Stone back from injury. This is just the nature of the playoff format, where you're going to have a great team like Dallas or Vegas get bounced in round number 1. That's just how it goes at this stage. Heading into this particular series and kind of thinking back to it, it's like it was another one of those series where you could see it go either way. And I'm trying to remember here. I'm looking back for the tweet that I had just in terms of who I thought would win the series. And I did say Dallas, but again, no surprise whatsoever if Vegas were to win this. I mean, I do think Dallas has the talent to win this particular series, but then you talk about like, okay, if Vegas takes a 3-1 lead, then it's like, all right, you feel pretty confident that it's over and done with. So if Dallas does not tie this series up at 2-2, it's probably series over.
Vegas has blown a 3-1 series lead.
They have. Have indeed.
To a fantastic team. Yeah, you know what? No matter what happens like this season, Vegas is, in these playoffs, like, Vegas is going to be pretty sick no matter what, I think. I think they can easily make another deep run because they're, again, miraculously at full strength again when the playoff starts. Another thing I want to say, man, you know how good Marner's going to look on Eichel's wing next year? It's going to be insane.
What that would do to Buffalo and Toronto.
It's going to happen. They are 100% going to get Mitch Marner somehow. And I guarantee, bro, it's right. Like, think about it. It's right up their alley. Who could they send back that kind of Toronto really has a deep need for? Pietrangelo? Who's now aging, and in Vegas's mind, it's like, could decline.
So Petro does have a no movement clause, so he'd have to agree to it.
Ah, shit.
Yeah. However,
was he a Leaf fan growing up?
Yeah. What pajamas did he wear? In terms of those defensemen, I mean, the Golden Knights did, of course, re-sign Noah Hannafin to an extension, which is funny, but maybe that means you could move out another physical defensive defenseman like Braden McNabb.
My God. Alex Pietrangelo grew up in King City, Ontario, which is just north of Toronto itself. He was totally a fucking
We need a first round elimination now for Vegas, and then that trade Petro for Marner. Like, other stuff to make that happen, but that's gonna happen. Like, in some way, Vegas is gonna be in on the trade if Marner decides to agree to a trade. I guarantee you, Vegas is gonna be one of the teams on his list, for a variety of reasons. The no state tax, and they're a contender.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Anything else to mention about this particular series between Dallas and Vegas? I mean, again, it's a competitive one. Outside of that, it's like, okay, it's just more waiting to see how it's going to go.
Please, Pavs deserves one before Hurdle. Let him through.
I hope for Joe Pavelski's sake that Dallas does win the series.
Yeah, me too.
Colorado is up 3-1 on Winnipeg. Winnipeg. It's just my only response. Like, oh, Winnipeg. Like you went from looking like in the off season that you were probably going to blow it up. You know, probably get rid of Hellebuck, probably get rid of Scheifele. You hold on to both of them. You make this great run. You were competitive for the division all season long. You get to the playoffs, and yeah,
Lay an egg.
Like I don't get it. Like Connor Hellebuck, especially, like his playoff struggles have continued.
He's playing like Georgiev.
He's playing worse than Georgiev.
Also, I know. Like that's the crazy thing. Georgiev is playing better than Georgiev should.
Yeah. Connor Hellebuck's numbers through 4 games: 523 goals against average with an 870 save percentage.
Hella suck. He played the exact same fucking way in my NHL 18. Be a pro.
I was just about to say NHL is realistic because you get a great goalie in the regular season, a Vezina caliber guy, and then in the playoffs, you can't stop a fucking beach ball. Turns out NHL is realistic.
Stop your goalies from playing. Like, they got to stop having their goalies play fucking 60 games a season and then wonder why when it comes to playoff time, they just can't compete the exact same way they used to. Like, the max, like, you're just exhausted.
Yeah, but Brodeur played 75 back when the game was slow as fuck.
Brodeur is a French freak. God damn it.
Connor Hellebuck, over the last 2 seasons. Last year, 64 games played, a 920 save percentage. In the playoffs, 5 games with an 886. This year, 60 games played with a 921. In the playoffs, an 870 save percentage in 4 games.
That's better. Only 60. I would still... I mean, you are paying him to get 60 games out of him. That's the thing. Like, if you're paying that much to a goaltender, he's got to be at least a 60-game guy, probably. But at the same time, if you want to be a playoff team and you want that better performance, maybe only play him 55.
Yeah, I mean...
But also, it's fucking Colorado. And it's Nathan MacKinnon.
That's the other aspect of it, right? Because it's like, okay,
his fucking chickpea balls on everyone.
You look at this Jets team, and they're not performing necessarily that poorly. It's just that the Avs are insane still. Like last year, they weren't able to go back to back. And despite Georgiev with just an 885 save percentage, star players, Kale McCarr, 8 points in 4 games with 2 goals, including a fucking wicked goal in the last game. Arturi Lehkonen has 7 points in 4 games with 4 goals.
Brother of someone Tougie and I know.
Did I know that?
Do you not know that? I'll tell you off camera because he doesn't like the fact to be spread around everywhere. But yeah,
well, there you go. Maybe I do know it. I just have intentionally forgotten it for that reason. Mikko Rantanen, 6 points in 4 games, all assists. Nathan MacKinnon, 7 points in 4 games, 2 goals, 5 assists. And then fresh off of a hat trick in the last game, Valeri Nichushkin, 6 goals in 4 games. I still don't know what the fuck's going on with that guy, what the hell happened in the offseason. Then he was in the player assistance program and whatever the fuck. But when he's on the ice for the Avs, he is everything the Dallas Stars were hoping he'd be with the 10th overall pick in 2013.
Yeah.
I mean, the Avs are just an absolute wagon. And that's the case, right? Like, sometimes it just comes down to the fact, like, in the playoffs, Florida, Tampa, Boston, Toronto, the Rangers, and the Hurricanes. If I were to tell you any one of those 6 Eastern Conference teams were to win the Stanley Cup this year, be like, I've seen the future, one of those 6 are winning it, you'd be like, yeah, okay. If I were to have said the Caps or the Islanders, you'd be like, wow, really? Okay. Especially like, the Islanders, I can kind of see. So it's not surprising when 6 out of the 8 playoff teams you view as like, oh yeah, I could see them getting it done. In the West, Dallas, Vegas, Winnipeg, Colorado. We haven't talked about Edmonton yet, or Vancouver, Nashville, and LA. Yeah. The vast majority of the teams in the playoffs you can view, because it's a league of parity, would be able to get it done. So, yeah, for Winnipeg, it sucks to be down 3-1 to Colorado. But at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, Colorado's sick. That's just kind of what it comes down to.
Yep.
Then you get into the Pacific portion of the Western bracket. Vancouver's up 3-1 on Nashville. Oh, Nashville. Oh, you had it. Like you don't come back from this. This series is over. I don't care if Thatcher Demko's not there. I don't care if Casey DeSmith isn't 100%. I don't care if the Vancouver Canucks have to play Brock Besser in goal. That series is done. You do not come back from missing an empty net and then blowing a 2-goal lead, or giving up a goal, missing an empty net, giving up the tying goal, and then losing in overtime. You don't come back from that. Like, that is the death knell for the Preds, who were better this year than I think a lot of teams expected, but it also would have been viewed as kind of an upset. I thought Nashville could win this series. I picked them to win this series because I thought Vancouver had a lot to prove. Thankfully for the Canucks, Nashville dug their own fucking grave with their mistakes and their ability to not capitalize on their opportunities in the series. I think it was very winnable for Nashville, but even though it's 3-1, it's GG's. I cannot imagine a team coming back from that collapse that they had in game number 4.
I mean, it's such a mental detriment. I feel so bad for Sissons, but also, buddy, you gotta make that. Like, I'm sure, like, it happens, but dude, like, first of all, Brock Besser's back, like, fully fucking back, and I'm so happy for Vancouver, man, because for years ago, they were like, dude, Brock Besser's going to be such a sick goal scorer. Starts looking good, starts having a shit ton of trouble. Then we find out his dad was sick, his dad dies, his play is still down in the dumps, and now he's coming back because he's presumably processed a lot of that grief, and now he's getting himself right mentally. Good for him. We love ourselves a healthy and self-growth king. And Vancouver's looking pretty good. The parts that I've caught of them, I don't know if this is a deep run playoff team still. I have my doubts about them. They're a little bit too cute. Now, they got the fucking skill to pull it off. Put them up against Vegas or Dallas, though, man. I don't know. Like, a Vegas, a Dallas, a Florida. Like, they could do it, but...
In terms of the next round...
Yeah, who are they?
Edmonton has a 3-1 series lead on the LA Kings.
That'd be a hell of a series.
After shutting them out in game 4, Stuart Skinner saves the day. The Oilers just 13 fucking shots, but they win 1-0. And that is what people have been looking for out of the Oilers, is for the defense and the goaltending, especially because they gave up 33 shots. It was the goaltending to be able to steal them a game when the offense can't deliver. And that finally happened for the Oilers after it really hasn't happened for them over the last couple of years. It's like, if Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl aren't firing on all cylinders, they're fucked. This game proved otherwise. And for that reason, I'm sorry, I think the Oilers have a clear-cut shot to the Western Conference Final. I cannot imagine them blowing a 3-1 lead to LA, and I cannot imagine Vancouver beating Edmonton. I just can't. I think the Oilers are conference final bound, bare minimum.
That's insane. That game started, that was the late start run.
Dude, right? They started at like 10:50 Eastern. It was fucking stupid.
That's crazy. No wonder. I'm like, when did this game happen? I'm like, oh yeah, it was so late. Like, I was checking scores throughout the night last night and then got carried away gaming and then obviously going to bed. But goddamn, that's impressive as hell for Oilers. And I love that. I love that so much for that team, for that fan base, and especially for McDavid. I hope like hell they can make a long run out of this, man, and get more performance like that from Skinner. And hopefully they don't. It's not just going to be 1-0s. He can't do that a lot. But yeah, a couple 2-1 victories en route. Yeah, you better watch out if Edmonton learned how to defend and have above average goaltending. That's really all you need these days, is above average goaltending with the way the league has shifted. Because like
Aiden Hill won the Stanley Cup for Vegas last year.
Yeah, Aiden Hill, and then Kemper the year before, who's now not even a starter. And then you look at the elite goalies: Hellebuck, trash; Demko, injured. The quote-unquote elite UC Saros, probably doing pretty fucking good, but he's on a terrible team against a really good team. I think
For the
UC
record, Saros has an 857.
Holy shit!
guys-
4 games.
Oh
You
yeah,
guys wanna
it's
play
because
a game?
Vancouver's shooting at like 50%.
Yes.
You guys want to play a
Yeah,
quick
my
game
bad.
of?
I forgot that was.
You guys want to play a
series.
quick goalie game, real quick?
Yes, I
Sure.
like games.
Out of the 5 goalies with the most games played in the regular season, all at 64 for Saros, Georgiev at 63, Connor Helbeck at 60, Stuart Skinner at 59, and Sergei Bobrovsky at 58. Which one is the goalie that has an above save percentage of 900?
It's got to be Skinner.
Stuart Skinner.
Yeah. I mean, he got that
The
shutout last
only
night.
goalie.
So. And it's funny because Edmonton, you look at those teams and it's like, okay, defensively, like, are they the strongest? But here they are.
Yeah, there's the thing about Edmonton though, is like, man, when the Sharks played them, I want to say it was 2015 or was it 2016?
I thought you were going to mention when the Sharks played them in like November and beat them and everyone was dancing on the Oilers' grave.
Oh, no. That was funny. But no, I'm thinking about like playoffs. Like, since the McDavid era started, this is how their team has kind of always been constructed. Questionable defensively, good fucking offensive upside, questionable goaltending. When they beat the Sharks in the first round, and I think it was 2016. No, because that was the year we went to the Cup. Fuck, when was it? 2017?
They beat the Sharks in 2017 in the first round.
2017.
And then lost to the Ducks in Game 7 in the second round.
Ah, yeah. But again, that was a very similar kind of constructed team. And if you get the right coach, if you get the right buy-in, you can do some good stuff. That was a good fucking Sharks team they just beat. That Sharks team was in the Stanley Cup Finals the previous year.
Yep.
And then they lost, to a tough Ducks team at the time. Like, it wasn't that long ago the Ducks were that good.
Right.
And like this, if they figured something out and they got the buy-in, and this is kind of eerily reminiscent of 2019 St. Louis Blues, albeit two completely different teams, but the situation is quite good. Dead last to potential Cup. I mean, oh yeah. Do you have the bracket up? Like, what would Edmonton's path be? Like, it'd be
if Edmonton makes
Vancouver.
a pass. Yes, if it's Edmonton over LA and Vancouver over Nashville, it's Edmonton and Vancouver in round 2, and then you'd be talking Edmonton against either, as it stands, Colorado, Vegas, or Dallas in the conference final.
That's where it gets fucking tough for Edmonton, is the conference final. But if they don't make the conference finals, I'm going to go out and say it's a failure.
100%.
You can't lose to Vancouver with the way your team's constructed and their team is constructed, and with the way your goaltender's performing, and them having a huge fucking question mark now in net.
I mean, Christ, they just won with their third string goalie last night, Vancouver. So, yeah. I mean, I think
any other team in this playoffs, I don't think, besides maybe Islanders.
Edmonton has the easiest theoretical path to the Final Four over anybody else.
Yes.
Because if you're talking about, again, Dallas, Vegas, Colorado.
Vancouver fans are going to hate us, by the way, but it's the truth, guys. Sorry.
It is. Because, look, Vancouver, despite being a number 1 seed, they have a hell of a lot more to prove than Colorado, than Vegas, especially, the last 2 fucking Cup winners. And then Dallas is also a number 1 seed. That's what has to come after or out of the top half of the Western bracket. Whereas the bottom half, it does look like it's going to be Vancouver and Edmonton in round 2. In the East, if things continue as they're going, it's Florida and Boston in the second round, New York and Carolina. Those are 2 wars. Like, I'm sorry, but if it's those 2 matchups, and then in the West is either Colorado against Vegas or Dallas, Vancouver against Edmonton, Edmonton is viewed as having the easiest opponents in the second round. That is just a fact. And Vancouver might prove people wrong.
Whoever limps out of that potential Boston-Florida matchup,
you could say the same about the Rangers Canes, though. Really?
I don't view them as, at least the Carolina, I don't view them as, they can be quite fucking physical. I'm just, I think maybe they're not too much separation, but when you think of Florida versus Boston, like, Jesus Christ. That just, considering last year, you might be right.
I mean, well, then again, in my mind,
New York,
a Rangers Hurricanes series becomes more physical than expected, even though they have the high skill. because I feel like those two teams are going to worry about the skill so much that they're going to turtle up and go like to the physicality and rely on the goaltenders and so on and so forth. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very interesting playoff bracket at this point in time. And again, unlike in some prior years, like there are so many teams where it's like, if I were to tell you they're going to win the Stanley Cup in 2 months, you'd be like, yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I mean, for as much as people are like, it's a league of parity and that can be kind of boring, come playoff time, it makes it a hell of a lot more interesting, where really on paper, there was only one true lame duck playoff team, and that was the Caps. Even like the Islanders or the Preds, you could be like, I could see them winning a round and causing a bit of a ruckus.
Because they have that aura of tight defensive teams and good goaltending.
Right.
And then weirdly, Islanders don't have the good goaltending.
Well, they have a good goaltender. It's just not one you thought.
Yeah, it's not who you thought. Varlamov's doing great.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, with that, anything else to bring up here, or shall we wind things down for our first of, who knows, maybe 2 episodes this week? We shall see. I mean, certainly, depends on how the series goes and the next, couple twists to the tail, basically.
Oh, that scared the shit out of me. Sorry. I got distracted because I thought I accidentally ordered pickup instead of delivery, and I don't have a fucking car now that I took the rental back. Anyway, what would you say? Can you run that by me one more time?
Endurance M.
I'm endo right now with the food distractions.
Endurance M. What do you have going on?
I might stream today. So past tense, if this is coming out tomorrow,
they won't know.
Oh, maybe I stream on Tuesday. Yeah.
You have a stream schedule there, buddy?
No, I don't.
You can announce?
I'm too busy working my blue collar fucking job, where I'm hating the
Twitter
government.
Where they could follow you for updates.
Yes.
I'm gonna teach you, and one of these days, I'm gonna teach you how to do some good plugs on here for yourself.
Okay.
But clearly, it will not be today. Keep going.
No, it will not be
Go
today.
on your tangent. I know you.
Yeah, that's it. No, shut up. Fuck you. I'm leaving. You know what? Fine.
Sin for the win. What do you have going on?
I'm doing some YouTube. Haven't been doing too much. The St. Louis Blues franchise mode sucked all the fucking life out of me. It's a great team, guys. You got to see how I built that team up because it's fantastic. All the stuff after that is it's EA, and I'm not trying to spoil anything, but I kind of did. I'll be starting a I'll announce it here. I'm going to be starting a Bannerlord series again, which I'm very excited about. Getting back into that game, and then I'm going to also be doing some streaming eventually, and I'll do a little bit of NHL on stream, but I'm also just going to be play a lot of games that I want to play, maybe some older games that I really enjoy to relive it, because a lot of the newer games that I try to play now, they don't do it for me. I don't know what it is. There's some good games coming out nowadays, but it just seems to be few and far between, and that's depressing because I lived through the golden age, baby. Follow me on YouTube, Sin FTW Productions.
There you go.
I did an endo right there. I talked all that shit and I just went on an endo tangent.
Hey, there you go. Well, if you want to hear Sin and I involved in other tangents, of course, again, over the last couple of weeks, we have launched a non-hockey podcast by the name of The Family Guys, where we are going back through the original season currently of Family Guy and going through the episodes, talking about the history, the references, and all of that. So make sure to check that out. If it is of interest, you can find us on any podcast platform of choice, and of course, video form on the YouTube side of things. For me, obviously, I am very much trying to get back into the groove of an unexpected 2 weeks off, thanks to this fucking bout of bronchitis, especially in the aftermath of having COVID at the beginning of March. It's been an interesting year for me so far, but very, very motivated right now on the YouTube side of things, especially with some of the different types of videos I want to make. I go through those phases of just all right, I want to talk about real hockey. I want to talk about the older sports games and stuff like that. So just very, very motivated to kind of get back into the groove and to making stuff that interests me and hopefully interest you, because nothing like having your ability to speak ripped away from you to make you really motivated yet again for, content creation purposes.
Man,
gentlemen, with that, we will talk again soon. As well, we'll see if any of these 3-1 series leads can get a little bit more interesting. And if not, then hey, round 2 will be coming up before you know it.
Yeah.
With that, we will see you all next time. Thank you again for watching, for listening, and we will see you all soon.